Hello, everyone. I'm Major Garrett in Washington. Tonight on America Decides, it can only be described as an extraordinary Oval Office exchange. President Trump and South Africa's president there, starting with a cordial conversation that rapidly spun in a different direction. What was that direction? Unsubstantiated claims of genocide made by the President of the United States. Now, that's a claim that's taken with great seriousness in South Africa. The president even paused everything and played a video that he says showed political support for violence against white South African farmers. We're going to dig into those claims, much of them hotly disputed, not just here, but in South Africa. And we're going to get into the South African president's response that occurred in real time right next to President Trump. Also tonight, sent to South Sudan. These men were deported to that war-torn nation. 8 convicted criminals in total from Myanmar, Laos, Vietnam, Cuba, Mexico, and South Sudan. But a federal judge says at least 7 of them should never have been sent there. President Trump and House Republicans. Well, a few of those House Republicans are, this afternoon, holdouts. They're members of the Freedom Caucus, and that entire caucus headed to the White House to talk about this budget impasse and its implications, not just for the bill, but the scheduling of a vote on it. As negotiations continue, there are now more than 500 pending amendments submitted to a crucial rules committee around this $3 trillion piece of legislation. The Congressional Budget Office has scored parts of it and says the bill, as it stands now, would give more benefits to the rich and take them from the poor. Nicole Killian is tracking the latest in the budget conversations and scheduling. Camila Montoya Galvez is covering the latest deportation flights. But we start with Olivia Rinaldi and the White House right here at the desk with me. Olivia, always great to have you with us. Talk to our audience about what happened in the Oval Office, what the president asserted, what the South African president said in defense of his country, and what we know about the underlying truth.
Well, this was an extremely tense and fiery Oval Office meeting that we saw today between the president of South Africa and President Trump. And it all centered around these claims of genocide happening in South Africa. This is a very, very dense conversation. So let's just take a moment and back up.
Please.
Obviously, there was apartheid in South Africa. White Afrikaners own the majority of the land down there, and they still do to this day. There has been an effort by the government to increasingly, use some of those lands for distribution. They say that these laws, though, these land distribution laws, are more likened to eminent domain. That's what we have here in the U.S., which is essentially when you can take the government can take private land and use it for public use. So the background of all of this is also coupled with increasing violence happening in South Africa.
Of which whites and blacks, and a majority of the violence victims are black in South Africa. Violence is a huge problem in that country.
And the president said as much today. The president of South Africa said as much today in that Oval Office meeting. This is an issue, though, that has been seized upon by people who are now members of our government, like Elon Musk, purporting that there is a genocide happening to these white South African farmers who are getting their land stolen and are subjugated to this violence. The president has seized on these comments. He repeated them today in the Oval Office that there is something happening violence-wise to them and showed this video of a South African political leader calling for violence and using politically charged language to call for death to some of these white South Africans.
Suggesting that might have been part of the government. That's just a minority party.
Yes.
And the unity government has denounced and rejected not just the rhetoric, but the calls for that violence.
Several times today, President Ramaphosa, throughout that meeting, said, we don't agree with this language. We condemn this language. And there's a reason why the people who you see on this couch here, who are part of my unity government, who don't exactly agree with me on everything, but we are all in lockstep in agreement that we are going to work together to make sure that factional government never rises in South Africa. That's also something that Elon Musk nodded at when he did say that. I did catch that as well.
And I just want to read for the audience the Department of Justice's current definition, because genocide means something specific, and we should not play around with genocide casually. Genocide, as defined by the Justice Department, includes violent attacks with the specific intent to destroy, in whole or in part, a national, ethnic, racial, or religious group. There is simply no evidence in South Africa that anything of this magnitude is occurring.
No, nothing of that magnitude. Yes, there's been increased violence against farm owners, but that's also black farm owners or people of color who work on farms down there. It's not subjugated to just white Afrikaner farmers down there. But still, this is likely to be a subject that's going to be ongoing because, as we mentioned throughout all of this, President Trump has given them refugee status. We've already seen a plane come over with some of those refugees last week.
I believe the number was 59.
59, there's likely to be more. So this is going to continue being a topic of conversation, more so as well that the G20 is being held in South Africa in November.
Uniquely, those 59 who came to the United States not only have refugee status, but expedited path to citizenship, something denied almost everyone else facing violence or persecution in any other country on the planet. Olivia Rinaldi, thank you so much. I appreciate it.